Hello, my name is Kevin McGeever. I'm director from Health is One, and I'm joined here today with my colleague Amy O'Hare. Amy, uh, glad you could join me. I wanted to talk to you about sleep. I think that's something which you know quite a lot about.
Yeah. Over the past couple of years, I've gone down a rabbit hole of sorts, looking into the science of sleep, why we sleep, um, and it's just so interesting that I've been kind of bitten by the bug, if you like. And now I'm trying to integrate the knowledge I have into working with my clients, working with
Okay,
families, working with
yeah.
individuals. I think it's so important that we spread sleep knowledge.
I'm particularly interested in sleep for different reasons. One is because people who have got an emotional or psychological problem typically refer to having disturbed sleep. And in
Yeah.
fact, it's one of the symptoms of depression, disturbed sleep. And more recently, research has indicated that disturbed sleep itself can lead to depression. So I'm
Yeah.
really keen to get your insights into how to help people manage their sleep patterns and to recognize that there are things that they can do to help with their sleep, how they sleep. And that can be anything, which I'm going to ask you about now, as to how they manage their lead up to sleep and what happens when they're actually trying to sleep. Um, just tell me, for example, let's work first of all with adults, and then
Yeah.
I'll also get your insight into children.
Yeah.
What is good hygiene, sleep hygiene for an adult, would you say?
So it's really important to understand that sleep isn't just about when you get into your bed at night,
Okay. Mm,
firstly. I think often sleep is taken for granted as just being a nighttime problem.
right.
Uh, but when we think of sleep, we want to understand the conditions in which we sleep in. So
Okay.
that's setting up the correct environment for sleep, doing things throughout the day that help promote healthy and restorative sleep. So, for example, the time of the day that we drink caffeine is
Right.
really, really important. I know that's probably one that a lot of people have already heard, but caffeine has a half-life of about 10 hours. So
Wow.
10 hours after you've consumed caffeine, it's still half in your system at
Okay.
that time.
Good
So
enough.
let's say that you've had a cup of coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's still going to be in your system if you're trying to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And the process in the body and the brain that happens to prepare us for sleep, the sleep drive, caffeine doesn't stop that from happening. So adenosine builds up in the brain all day, and that helps us to work towards sleep. And sleep disperses adenosine, which makes us feel more refreshed. Caffeine, if we're drinking it to kind of stay awake through the day, it doesn't help to slow that or stop the adenosine building up. It just masks kind of the symptoms of adenosine building up.
Okay.
So it's
So is
still
that just part of the
happening.
circadian rhythm then,
Yeah.
that you know, waking up early
Yeah.
in the morning, then as you get towards the end of the day, your body naturally starts to slow down and it readies itself for sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So the circadian rhythm, what we are aligned to is you know, we're awake through the day and asleep at night. And melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, is influenced by light and dark. So a lot of people will notice that they probably feel less tired in the lighter nights when the clocks go forward.
Right.
And maybe in the winter time when it's been darker earlier, start to feel sleepy a little bit earlier. It's really
Okay.
difficult to keep that circadian
Okay.
rhythm in check. But
Means,
there's things.
yeah. So I was just wondering whether this thing you mentioned caffeine and preparing, and I was thinking of paralleling this with like children who typically aren't going to drink much caffeine. So is there an equivalent for them? I mean, is fizzy drinks, or is there some kind of drinks that would be equivalent, or is that not relevant to children's sleep hygiene?
So when we think of children, there is caffeine in a lot of children's drinks or drinks
Right?
that parents might be giving to
Like
children. So
Coke, for
fizzy
example.
drinks,
Yeah.
Coke, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
has caffeine content. And also a really popular nighttime drink for children is hot chocolate. and it
Right.
also has caffeine
Does it?
content.
All right.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that, and it's really important that we understand what's in what we're consuming through the day that might be hindering sleep at night. So something else might be the amount of sugar that a child's consuming and what time they're consuming the sugar. I think we all know that sugar has an impact on children, um, but depending on when they're consuming that, if they're consuming it, after school, after dinner, that potentially will have an impact on them being able to wind down and
Right.
go to sleep. The
Mhm.
wind down ritual is really important. So when we're consuming, even as adults and as children, things like spicy foods, can interrupt kind of the digestive process, might give them an
Right.
upset
Yes.
stomach,
Yeah.
and that can interrupt the quality of the sleep that we get.
Yeah, I
So
think, for me as an adult, I would say alcohol can do that for me
mm,
personally.
yeah,
Um, that it might make me sleepy initially, but it
mm,
certainly impacts, well, obviously depends on how much alcohol you have,
yeah.
but can impact on the quality of the sleep afterwards. So that, which is interesting because lots of people think, "Oh, take a couple of glasses of wine and it'll help me get to sleep." And it actually might do that, but you're talking about quality sleep, which is something slightly different.
Yep. And on the note of alcohol, that might be the case that having a glass of wine, might help someone drift off initially. But actually, studies have found that alcohol reduces the duration of REM sleep, so rapid eye movement sleep. And that, as we go through the night, we go through sleep cycles. At the beginning of the night, we spend more time in deep sleep.
All right.
And towards kind of waking time throughout the night, we spend more time in REM sleep, so rapid eye movement sleep. And in that stage of the sleep cycle, in the REM stage, that's where we're doing a lot of memory consolidation and processing of emotions and stress. So, going back to your original point about the link between poor sleep and depression and anxiety and things like that, if we are not getting adequate REM sleep, we are not processing difficult
Right.
stuff
Right.
properly, you know?
Okay. Okay.
So there is a link there between reduced REM sleep. If someone gets up, let's say at 3 o'clock in the morning and they can't get back to sleep and they end up sitting reading their book or going and watching the TV, they are not getting adequate REM
Right.
sleep. It
Do
may
you have
be that
do you
they're
have advice for that? Because I've come across people who cope with, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which is not uncommon, and some people lie in bed and toss and turn. Some people get up and as you say, read a book or watch TV. What would your guidance be on that one?
so doing things at that time in the morning that promote sleep and promote rest. So it may be something low impact and not stimulating. So I think a lot of people, teenagers potentially and adults especially who have devices, will reach for their phone and start
Okay.
scrolling. Um, and the stimulation from the blue light can inhibit melatonin production. So, going for activities, if you have to get out of bed, the worst thing we can do is lie there and stew and not sleep because
Is
then
it?
we potentially get anxious about not being
Right.
able to sleep. We start thinking about all the things the following day that we might not be able to do because we haven't had enough sleep. Will I
Mm.
perform as well in that meeting?
Yeah.
Will I be able to last the full day if I haven't had enough sleep? There's many things that we can start worrying about. So doing some kind of deep relaxation to try and limit the production of cortisol to limit any spikes in stress, doing things that they enjoy. If you start to worry when you're in bed or start to get really, really restless, get up and do something from a different
Oh,
space,
okay. Okay.
and return to bed when you feel genuinely sleepy. Like when
Right.
you feel like you could drift off, return
Right.
to bed. But try and keep the environment dim. Don't be going about the
Mm.
house putting all the lights on. Try and keep it dim and dark. If you want to read a book, try using a kind of dim reading light rather than
Okay.
putting
Yeah.
on a big light, for
Yeah.
example, and just try and keep it as relaxed and low impact as
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
If there's worries creep in, try writing those down, and returning to bed when you're feeling sleepy.
Okay. You mentioned, writing things down, so say a wee bit more about that. What's that about?
So there's things coming up in your mind, I think a lot of us, particularly adults, parents, will start to go over all the things in their head that they maybe haven't done or maybe they're worried about doing. So rather than letting those ruminate and letting those go round and round in your brain, make a list,
Right.
get them out your head and put them
Yes.
down on a piece of paper.
Okay.
And ideally leave that piece of paper in a different room. Um,
Okay.
there's something psychological there about being separated from your problem or your stressor.
Okay.
So the
See that.
process of writing it down and removing it can be really helpful.
Yeah. Um, okay, jumping in, I realize I'm jumping back and forth because this is just a short
Mhm,
input, but people can get concerned about their children having
mhm,
disturbed sleep and
mhm,
settling their child down. And in fact, I think even this week I was seeing something about in the media about, should you just allow children to decide their own bedtimes and some kind of discussion like that, which I think would be a terrible idea. But anyway, that's me personally.
mhm.
About managing a child's sleep, what kind of hints and tips could you offer people with that?
So a wind down ritual is really important.
Okay.
As an adult, we have a role with our children to help them manage their autonomy and decision making. And it doesn't mean that we give them free rein, but helping them become autonomous within something that they have no choice over, which is going to bed,
Yeah.
is a really good way to help build autonomy in children, but also lay really good sleep foundations. So having a wind down ritual can really help with that. But you can invite autonomy into that by saying, okay, we have two activities here to help us wind down for bed. Would you like to do the blocks or would you like to do some colouring? Offering choice within a situation they have no choice over.
Mhm.
But it's really important that we lay those sleep foundations early on, particularly as we go towards the teenage years, because there's a natural shift in the circadian rhythm in the teenage years. And if
Right.
we've laid really good sleep foundations first, we can help them understand the importance of sleep, towards adolescence.
Mhm, mm. I guess for adolescents, the big challenge is letting go of their phones,
Mhm,
nearer to bedtime.
mhm.
I suppose any hints and tips for that? Because I know that lots of parents struggle with that one.
Yeah, I think there's lots of um, worries for teenagers about handing over their
Mm,
devices. It's given
yeah.
up their autonomy, as to an extent. They've got FOMO, that fear of missing out. Who's going to text me? Who's going to be posting something on social media? What if I've missed it? But when we think of, again, back to the sleep foundations, helping teenagers understand why it's important that we get restful and restorative sleep can be really, really helpful. So, for example, if you've got a young person who's really into sports, whether it's rugby, football, gymnastics, helping them understand that when we sleep, the body's repairing and restoring. And
Mm,
if you want to be as explosive in your movements at football or at boxing, you're going to want to get restful and restorative sleep so that your brain can process all that information and your muscles can heal. When we put things in context for teenagers, they tend to be a lot more understanding than if we
okay.
say, I said to go to bed, so that means go to bed.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I know that there's some particular challenges with young people who maybe have a diagnosis, some neurodiversity diagnosis. Any hints that you would give to parents who are worried and struggling over a child who maybe have ADHD or who's kind of on the go all the time? What would you advise there, please?
So it's the the kind of percentage of neurodivergent individuals who have a sleep issue is around about 80%. So
Wow,
it kind
that's
of
a high
comes
merit.
hand in
Wow.
hand, and it tends to be one of the first signs that there may be a diagnosis of sorts there.
Right.
But
Right.
when we think of it in relation to sleep, we
Mm,
want to make sure that our approach is neuroaffirming. Okay.
right.
So it's not about having your child fit into a typical sleep schedule. It might
Uh-huh.
be that we need to understand what challenges may be present. So it might be that there are sensory sensitivities
Right.
that impact the individual, you know, monitoring the sensory impact throughout the day can help inform what may be impacting at night. So whether it's sound, texture, smells, you know, it could be that we get a lot of evidence of what might be helpful at night by seeing what's helpful throughout the day. And when it comes to putting a ritual or a routine in place, we want to make sure that it aligns with their individual needs. So it might be that their wind down ritual is something that aligns with their, you know, particular interest. The one thing that we really need to stay away from, which was surprising to me as a parent of a child with ADHD, is getting their energy out has the opposite effect. So if you're sending your child out to bounce on the trampoline to get out their energy so that they're tired to go to bed, you're adding to their adrenaline.
Right,
There's
okay.
potential there that you're actually keeping them up longer when
Right.
you've intended to tire them out.
Mm,
So
no.
relaxation techniques, gentle exercise can be helpful. So yoga, things like that.
Right.
There's really good videos on YouTube of like wind down, gentle yoga, stretching, things like that can help
That'd be
to
good
really
to see those,
regulate.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
to regulate the system as
Mm.
part of a wind down rather than a wind up ritual, which might happen if we want to get their energy out.
That's a really good insight there, because people might sometimes tell children to go and kind of work off, but actually what you're suggesting there is that they're just stimulating themselves. It's going to take even longer to calm down. Amy, that's really helpful. This was a really good bite-sized kind of insight into some of the things, some of the complexities of sleep. Maybe from this, it might be a good opportunity to have a slightly longer session, inviting questions and getting your insights from that. For the moment, all I can say is thank you very much. It's been really useful hearing what you have to say. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.